We're going to continue with graphs of functions. So something like this. Let's have a look at these. I'm trying to turn this just a little bit. Okay. So we have a graph here. This is a function. It passes the vertical line test. Find f of 0 and f of negative 6. So for f of 0, you find the point whose x-coordinate is 0. And I can clearly see that the point 0, 3 is on the graph. And so what does f do? Well, f takes the x-coordinate and maps it into the y-coordinate. So f evaluated at 0 is equal to 3. So again, instead of x comma y for coordinates, we have x comma f of x. So if the x-coordinate is 0, the y-coordinate is 3, so f of x is equal to 3. F of 0 is equal to 3. Our answer is 3. Our answer is not the point 0, 3, and if you choose that, it's wrong. The answer is 3. What's f evaluated at negative 6? Well, the process is you look for the point whose x-coordinate is negative 6, and the y-coordinate will be f of negative 6. So we can see that negative 6 comma negative 3 is on the graph. And so what does f do? It maps the x-coordinate into the y-coordinate. And so f evaluated at negative 6 is equal to negative 3. And the answer is negative 3. Okay, I'm not going to do part B. Let's look at C. You should know how to do part B. Is f of 3 positive or negative? So is it a positive number or is it a negative number? So let's find the point whose x-coordinate is 3. Okay, so if x is equal to 1, 2, 3, this point here is the point whose x-coordinate is 3. Now, what is that? I don't know exactly, but I do know that the x-coordinate is 3. The y-coordinate is a positive number. It's between 3 and 4. And that's all this question asks for. It doesn't ask for what f evaluated 3 is exactly. We cannot tell. But f map will map 3 into a positive number. And so the answer is positive. Okay. So what is f evaluated at negative 4? You look for the point whose x-coordinate is negative 4. 1, 2, 3, negative 4. There it is. F maps the x, 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is. F maps the x-coordinate into that y-coordinate, and that y-coordinate is a negative number, so it's negative. Okay, so let's go on. For what values of x is f of x equal to 0? So when is f of x equal to 0? Now remember, in the previous lecture, f of x is the same thing as y. So this question is the same as when is the y-coordinate equal to 0? That is exactly the same question as that. So let's look at these. What points have y-coordinate equal to 0? So that does. So for what values of x is f of x equal to 0? Well, when x is equal to negative 3. Anywhere else? Yeah. When x is equal to 6, the y-coordinate is 0. So that's the same thing as f of x being 0. And anywhere else? Yes. When x is equal to 10. Now, what's this one asking us? For what values of x is f of x strictly greater than 0? That's the same thing as when are the y coordinates greater than 0? That's the same thing as when are the y coordinates positive? And y coordinates being positive means the graph is above the x-axis. Okay, so when is f of x greater than 0 is the same thing as when is the graph above the x-axis. So we're going to have to tell where this happens in interval form. It's above the x-axis on this part of the graph. And this happens when x is between -3 and +6. And we do not include -3 because it's on the x-axis. And the question here is, where is the graph above? So the answer is when x is inside the interval. Well, when x is between -3 and +6. So that's an interval, not a point. But also when x is between 10 and +11, and it's allowed to be +11 because when x is 11, this thing is above. So that would be your answer in interval form. Another answer would be, where is this above the x-axis? When x is strictly between 6 and -3, or x is between 10 and less than or equal to 11. That is a correct answer, but again, I would expect the answer to be in interval form. On the number line, when x is between -3 and +6, and then when x is between 10 and 11, include 11. So these three answers would be the same thing. I would expect it would want the answer, it would be written like that on a multiple choice test or in the back of the book. What is the domain of f? Well, the domain of f, you use the x-axis to measure how wide. Where's the leftmost point? Here. Where's the rightmost point? Here. So the domain is the allowable x values. What x values are allowed? When x is between -6 and 11 inclusive. So the domain is when x is between -6 and 11 inclusive. What about the range? Well, for a graph, the range is the allowable y values. You use the y-axis to measure how tall. Where's the lowest point? And where's the highest point? So what are the y values restricted to? Well, the y values go from -3 inclusive all the way up to and including 4. Okay, what are the x-intercepts? An x-intercept is where it intersects the x-axis. So I have an x-intercept at -3. These are points. So this is not an interval. So my x-intercepts are the points -3, 0, 6, 0, and 10, 0. What's the y-intercept? That's where does it intersect the y-axis? Well, right there at the point 0, 3. So these are my x-intercepts, and those are my y. I have one y-intercept. How often does the line y equal 1/2? So there's an ink blot there. How often does the line y equal 1/2 intersect the graph? If your answer is 1, then you don't know what the line y equals 1/2 looks like. The line y equals 1/2 is the horizontal line going through 1/2 on the y-axis. That is the line y equals 1/2. So how many times does this intersect the graph? Well, where is 1/2 on this graph here? So what would that line look like? It would look like that, and it intersects it 3 times. So the answer would be 3. How often does the line x equal 5 intersect the graph? What's the line x equal 5 look like? Well, that's a vertical line that goes through 5 on the x-axis. So that's the line x equals 5. And so the line x equals 5 is here, and it would only intersect it 1 time. For what values of x does f of x equal 3? Remember, f of x is the same thing as y. So for what x values do you have a y coordinate of 3? Well, I have a y coordinate of 3 when x is 0, and I have a y coordinate of 3 when x is 4. So the answer is 0 and 4. For what values of x does f of x equal -2? F of x is the same thing as y. So for what x values, what points, for the points that have a y coordinate of -2, what are the x coordinates? That's what this is asking you for. So find the points whose y coordinates are -2. There's 1. And there's 1. So for what values of x does f of x equal -2? When x is 5 and when x is equal to 8. That ends this